alaikum, greetings, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Indola, your host for this evening. Unfortunately, Ayub had a scheduling issue, so he's not going to be with us tonight. But we're gonna move forward with our amazing guests that we have. So this is our Pre-Ramadan series for the Shakors, and our theme for the whole month of March is the importance of the Muslim family. And each week we're going to be bringing on some really amazing guests to explore different topics around that overarching theme. So this week is all about oneself. So on Monday, we had our brother Khalil on, we talked about oneself. Today we have two amazing sisters that's going to be joining us in just a moment to talk further about the importance of oneself and just all the different ways that we can explore that. So our very first sister that's going to be joining us is Naaila Clay. She uses the charming allure of her Southern roots within her expertise, including her niche for relationship renovation and guiding folks to their own self-mastery. Her record includes an MS in mental health counseling and being EMDR trained. She's a former executive director of a health clinic for uninsured persons, a Goodman Fellow of Leadership Triangle, and a contributing counselor with a major online site. She is most proud of creating a prenatal curriculum with a 99 point, I'm sorry, I said prenatal. I meant premarital curriculum. Not thinking about babies. Well, I just saw my super cute niece, so I got baby on my mind a little bit, but she made a premarital curriculum with the 99.5% win team rate, which is unbelievable, to block divorce and negotiating pro bono open heart surgery services for an uninsured client. Her couples counseling practice has been in the ring of love to keep 98.73% of couples clients together. Awesome. She co-authored a book with her husband, Selection Perfection, a rock-solid premarital guide for you. Together, she and her husband are known as the social media personality, That Clay Couple, and with counseling clients on 5 different continents. So, Naaila, welcome.
Thank you. I enjoyed the introduction. I was like, look at this. This is
great. You've done all the marriage stuff. I didn't. What's that called? Was it a Freudian slip when I said prenatal? I didn't mean prenatal. I didn't mean that.
They go together, premarital, prenatal.
It can. It absolutely can. But let's hope not too much. But okay, so we got Sister Naaila on here. So our other sister, I don't have an official bio for, but many of you are gonna know her nickname, the Village Auntie. Super dope. Sister Angelica Lindsey-Ali. I'm gonna bring you up too. Assalamu alaikum. Oh, I think you're still muted. Oh, yeah.
Walaikum salam. How are you?
I'm doing well, alhamdulillah. How are you doing today?
Good, thank you.
All right, awesome. So if you're just joining us, again, I'm Indola. I have Naaila Clay and Angelica Lindsey-Ali on here, and we are discussing the importance of the Muslim family and oneself as a part of that. And so last month, when I sat down to kind of think through this and put it together, I started off with the importance of oneself in the whole pre-Ramadan. And when I decided to do oneself, from being totally honest, y'all were the 2 women that I wanted on my Women's Day. And so I don't know if I was harassing y'all a little bit, but I was like, please respond. Please respond. Please be available. I was even going to change the date if y'all weren't available. So I'm so glad that both of you were able to join me and us for this really important topic and share some of your wealth of knowledge. And so we can get right to it. Sister Angelica, do you want to say a few more things about what you do and who you are?
Sure. I'm a certified sexual health educator and intimacy expert. My work lies at the intersection of the sacred and the sacral. So I cultivate authentic spaces for primarily Muslim women, but not only Muslim women, to explore spirituality and sexuality within a vulnerable framework, a very safe and honest space. I'm also a health researcher. I've been working in public health for almost 20 years now. and I'm an author. So that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
That's a good bit of stuff. Super impressive. All right, so just to jump right in, when I thought about you two coming on for this day, a part of it was, are there some feedback or something?
Just a little
You guys
bit,
hear that?
but it's not continuous. It's not continuous.
Okay, it was saying something like it just stopped. Okay, so I was thinking about it in terms of your work feeling very complementary in terms of dealing with our brain stuff and then dealing with our mind stuff, and how a lot of times that stays separated when we are exploring oneself, and how important it is to bring it together. And so Naaila, if I could get you to start off and talk about, when I asked you on, like, what was the first thing you thought of in terms of when we're talking about the importance of ourself, like oneself? What was the first thing that popped in your mind?
The first thing I thought was how much we have bought into the mentality that tells you not to do yourself, to negate oneself and stick with all the titles. We have so many titles. We have wife, we have mother, we have educator, daughter. You can keep going. I mean, like Angelica, she got a lot of titles, right? And I even know some of your gifts and the things that you offer to the community in Dola, because we live in the same locality.
Right.
However, we stick with those titles. And then I ask, I got that. That's what you do. But
yes.
Who are you? Who are
yes.
you? And it gets silent.
Yes.
We get so connected to those titles because they're safer. It's safer to say I'm a wife and a daughter than to tell you I'm a woman who has goals and I have fears and I'm exploring and I get scared about it and I don't have anyone to talk to about it. Oh, okay. Now I know who you are.
Yeah.
I was excited because this is the conversation that we need to have so women can get external consent and hopefully transfer to the internal.
I will never ever forget when I finally went to like real deal Holyfield therapy, like for me, because of things I needed to do. It was 3 years ago. And I got to this point where I didn't want to go anymore, but I knew I wasn't done. So I said, when I started, I told myself, I'm going to go and do what she says, or I'm not going to go at all. Because there's no point in going just to go, right? And so when I expressed to her that I kind of wanted to do a bi-week, she was like, I don't think you're ready for that. And I went. And I realized later the reason I didn't want to go is because I was coming up on this revelation of being so focused on what I do that I didn't know who I be. And that's how she phrased it to me. Like, okay, what you do is fine, but what do you be? Who do you be? How do you be? And I didn't really want to have that conversation with her because it was me and her. It was no filter, no blocks, no screens. And I just wasn't really interested in doing that work, honestly, until I did it. And once I did it, it was so liberating and freeing and amazing. And I started feeling like I had met myself again in a way that I knew deep down a long time ago. And I saw in my children here and there, but for whatever reason, didn't want to give myself permission to be. And I literally needed her to say, like, I needed that external permission. I needed her to say, okay, that's fine. Do this, don't do that. Which is weird because I don't feel like the kind of person that needs that in my mind. I don't need these things, right? And so I've heard you talk. And so I was like, she gotta come on because she got a way to do to tell people, to give these validations when we don't think we need them, and to make it make sense. You know, it's not stuffy language that people won't understand, right? And so yeah, that's perfect. Okay. So then, Sister Angelica, same question. What were your first thoughts when I asked you to come on for this topic?
I can definitely agree with everything that my sister Naaila said about divesting ourselves of the titles that people use for external validation.
Yeah.
For me, that is the focus of my work, expansion of the self. Audre Lorde has a quote, and I'm going to paraphrase it poorly, but it's something along the lines of we've been taught to deny the deepest yearning within ourselves, the deepest
Mhm.
craving we have within ourselves. And for a lot of women, Black women, Muslim women, we have been taught that we are valued based on our titles. We've
Yes.
so disconnected from ourselves that it's difficult for us to see beyond that. So what my work is, I talk about sex to get people in the door. And a lot of women are disappointed when they come to my workshops and classes because they think that I'm going to, teach them how to keep their man at home at night. And I'm going to, show them some tips and tricks that will blow his mind. And that's boring. That's not at all. We don't talk about husbands. We don't talk about men. We talk about women. We talk about the self. And I think that's what's missing, these conversations, these spaces to have expansive and generative conversations with women. So I was excited about the idea of talking about oneself within the context of the Muslim family, because if the woman is really the creator of families, right? The families come through us, physically and metaphysically, they come through us. We really need to be more in touch with ourselves so that we can then pass that on to our progeny and also to our partners by extension.
Yeah, my husband, I didn't know, is familiar with you and your work. And so when I told him that you were coming on, he was like, what? Like, oh, I'm going to miss it. Listen to this podcast that I heard of her. This was from 2 years ago. And so he sent me this podcast that you were on, the identity politics. And so he was like, it's one of my favorite ones for y'all. Like, that's for y'all. But I'm so excited. He was so excited. Like, yeah, this is what we need. And, the more that y'all do this, then this can happen. Because we only have daughters. We have 3 daughters. And so initially, I was doing my self-work for them, which, of course, is crazy. And I've gotten to the point now where it's like, I'm not a mom first. I'm not just a mom. I'm not a wife first. And I used to think that was not just selfish, but like wrong. Like, how dare I not acknowledge these little people that Allah blessed me with first and foremost? Like, my husband and I used to have this hierarchy that we would say, Allah's first, and then you, then the girls, then myself. And we would both do it until I went to therapy, honestly, and realized that it doesn't work like that. And that was the source of so many of the things that weren't going well. And overall, we have a great relationship. But of course, there are things that come up that were not ideal. And when I started to put myself back at the center was when everything started getting better, honestly. And so the thing that took me to therapy was a very overt trauma, a trauma that's can't deny. I was kidnapped from somewhere. And so that, for the people in my surroundings, was like, okay, this is a reason to go to therapy. But as we all know, most traumas aren't necessarily so big and in your face. And I'll never forget when I was in therapy and we were going over the backstory stuff, she was like, oh, so this isn't your first trauma, huh? Like, you've been to this rodeo. And I was like, have I? And she was like, oh, Lord, we have work to do. And so she's just writing. And it just made me think about how many of us do that, like how we're pushing through, we get over it, we tuck it away and whatever. And so like in you guys' line of work, how often is trauma playing a part in the way we treat ourselves? Whether is it like something that's on people's mind? Is it something that people don't like to talk about? Because people tend to be surprised that I talk about mine so comfortably, but I don't know, I kind of feel obligated to at this point because it's not hard for me anymore. And so it feels kind of like the permission thing, right? Starting to kind of give permission by doing it myself. So like, what are your experiences with this kind of thing? I'm sorry, Angelica, if you could go first.
I wanted to go back to you saying that your husband knows a lot about my work. There are a lot of brothers who know about my work and who introduce their wives to my work. And I would like to think that, giving permission to women to be themselves also extends to our partners, right? So when he sees you going through a process of self-discovery and renewal, he's kind of like, okay, well, maybe I need to do that. Maybe I need to do that too.
Exactly what happened.
And what it really translates to is this unraveling of epigenetic trauma, particularly that we as Black people deal with, the trauma that is embedded in our DNA, that we pass along to our children, that we pass along to our mates through both physical and metaphysical means. So trauma is something that I deal with a lot in my work. Women will say, I can't, reach a point of physical fulfillment with intimacy with my husband. We have a very strained relationship. And then it goes back to something that, may have happened in their childhood. It may have happened in their mother's childhood. And they think that these things don't affect them. And then we talk about, the perpetual trauma of just living in America. You ain't got to be Black. You ain't got to be Muslim. You ain't got to be a woman. We're in a point of global collective trauma. So trauma plays a huge role in the work that I do, but also getting people to understand that not every pain is trauma. Some of it is just mess that you saw the pile of mess sitting on the ground and you just stepped in it because you thought that somehow when you stepped in it, it was going to smell like rose petals, and you were just surprised that when you stepped in it, it was in fact a big pile of mess. Sometimes we put ourselves in a position of pain and stress and we call it trauma, but that's not exactly what it is. So it's also about teaching people what trauma truly is, and also about the damaging effects of our conscious choices. So it comes up quite a bit. And I find that when women realize, oh, okay, this is a deeply embedded trauma that I haven't dealt with, versus, oh, this is a series of mistakes that I have consciously and perpetually, continue to make, it's like an aha moment, and you can see the shift begin to happen.
Yeah. What about for you, Sister Naaila?
Of course, I do. I concur with my sister that there's this amazing discomfort with trauma, and at the same time, there's this amazing comfortability, being comfortable with calling everything a trauma response.
Yeah.
And we go on social media with the meme. This is a trauma response. This is a trauma response. And my colleagues and I are like, okay, whatever. And they're not. And so when I use the word trauma, I know that unless it is very explicit, something such as yours, people become very uncomfortable, particularly when the trauma was induced by mama and them, when it was done by grandma, when the trauma was by someone you love, and understanding that your pain and your love for them, they can actually exist at the same time. You can have both, and admitting that someone walked over your heart and did something that was hurtful and said they love you, the two of them can happen. And in doing so, because Black folks, we're not supposed to talk about our people. You don't talk about your relatives, because this is disrespectful. This idea that if I don't agree with you, I'm being disrespectful.
Yes.
It's crazy, which lends to us not being ourselves, because I can't even share my opinion. So, but understanding that you can say these things. So if I'm already conditioned not to talk about it within my family unit, which is one of the first places that it happens, I can't talk about it with my friends. The only place that, as you said it, Dola, that because the one that you had, it was a comfortable one. Yes, go to therapy. But the other ones, we're not supposed to talk about. And so I may use more other words, like the other day with the client, I used starvation. Okay. Someone starved you of your freedom. You've been on a diet for a very long time. You have this profuse hunger for something else. She was so much more comfortable with that. Okay. And after finding, how does that sit with you? What does that feel like? Oh, okay. You know what this means. And she can talk herself into it. But the initial thought that, I've been through trauma. Because the other thing is, we like that phrase, I've been through a lot. which is your way of saying, I had some trauma. We're not going to talk about it because I'm just going to call myself a survivor. A survivor of what?
Of what? Right. Yes. Of what?
Of what?
Can I say something about that family trauma piece?
Yes.
Sure.
And this might be, this could be a whole conversation by itself. But, as a Black person who is in an intercultural marriage, with someone from West Africa, I'm just going to go out on a limb and say that the deification of our ancestral cultures can create toxicity in families.
Yeah.
When we say because it's African, it's better, it's right, it's the proper way, we perpetuate toxicity in family patterns. So, when children are said to be disrespectful, they're said to be rude because perhaps they are asserting themselves and not being disrespectful, but just not behaving as robots. That, gives this idea that somehow you're insufficiently Black, right? You are denying your ancestors and you're doing something completely incorrect. And I'm speaking on this from a personal level, having my parenting, in certain circles, not with my in-laws, but, other people, you go and you sit with people and they're like, oh, Angelica, you're spoiling your children. Oh, Angelica, you shouldn't do this. As opposed to saying this is another authentic way of Black parenting. And just because it does not look like yours does not mean that it's not okay. I've had people, from other, and I know people are going to be all in my DMs behind this, but that's okay. I'm used to it. But it's true, right? I've had people from a variety of cultures tell me, well, we don't have therapy in Africa. I said, but you should.
You should.
You got it, but you should.
You do it differently. They
have it, right? They have it. But it's this mentality that somehow we are broken, somehow we need to be fixed, somehow we need to be authenticated and verified. We need a blue check on our Blackness because we're not doing it a certain way. That is also another form of trauma that is unique to children of the diaspora. And I think I come across it a lot in my work with women who say, well, Angelica, this is easy for you because you know all about Black culture. I'm just trying to get in touch with my Blackness. I said, no, my Blackness is bred from Detroit. It ain't from Dakar. It ain't from Accra. My Blackness is from Joy Road and Greenfield. And it's just, we're not a monolith. And that trauma of just being able to establish your identity, that in and of itself is a level of trauma because we're carrying hundreds of years of epigenetic trauma in our bones, and it comes out in our relationships. It comes out in the way we communicate with each other. It comes out in the way that we feel that we need to have some type of external validation. So I'm sorry that just when Naaila said that, I was like, starvation. Yes, I understand that when people get uncomfortable, people like when you talk about this, but we have to talk about it because it's a reality.
It's all so true. When you were talking about like the parenting part and stuff, I've been told very similar things, like, spoil my children, or I want them to be entitled. Children shouldn't have opinion. You don't ask children questions, you tell them. And fortunately, as insecure as I was with the whole being myself part, I was cool with the mother part. So I didn't change. I felt very confident in the adjustments that I was making as a mother versus how I may have been as a sister, as a daughter, or as a wife. And so I kind of stayed the course. And then the same people would come later on like, oh, wow, so probably why your children are so vulnerable. Or I really like how she can stand up and do this thing. And I'm like, well, how do you think that happened? So we let her wear those tacky shoes that day because she was able to make a choice. A choice that is low risk, that doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if my baby has those snow boots in July in Atlanta. Her feet hot, not mine. One of my daughters said, can I wear mixed match shoes? And I said, no. And I said, no. And she said, well, why not? And I said, you're absolutely right. Why not? Go put some shoes on, let's go. Make sure they fit and they're not filthy. That's it. Don't be filthy. And so my children have pushed me into the oneself thing more than I could have ever prepared myself for, in such interesting ways, because I thought that good mothering was this sacrificial lamb kind of, I can die over here, but if the girls are okay, that's what counts, right? Like, that's what matters. And like I said, a very overt trauma pushed me into my focus of my oneself journey. But I will never forget how many people said to me, you still in therapy? Like, you're not done with that? Like, or therapy don't work because you still got to go. Or, whatever rendition of that thing was. And my therapist did warn me that that was probably going to happen. And she was like, so these are the things you can do. Turn around and walk away. You can smile and nod, because at a certain point, you're not ready to really engage. But once I was strong enough to engage, I started telling them, you should be there too. Like, you want to meet my therapist? Like, we can have a family session, a friend chat. We all need this. And I don't even really understand anymore what the shame is. Like, so many times people will say, if you broke a bone, you wouldn't set it by yourself and wrap it.
Exactly.
You wouldn't even consider it. It wouldn't even cross your mind to not go find an orthopedic surgeon or a doctor to set that bone and get an x-ray and whatever. If you got a cold, if you got pink eye, any physical ailment is seen as okay. But then when we're talking about oneself and standing in our truth and being who we are and healing and whatever, now all of a sudden things aren't okay anymore. And I don't know, like, where do you think that even really comes from? Like, this idea that you have to fit in these spaces, or you shouldn't be yourself, but you can be this version that's palatable, even when yourself is palatable. Like, I guess I never really understood why that happens so much.
But people fear vulnerability. And if you are vulnerable and if you have put yourself in that position, then that means that it is possible that I could do the same thing. And I don't want to do that. So you shouldn't have done it.
The vulnerability part, yeah.
So what happens is that you have the cooties. You have the head and heart cooties. I'm not trying to catch that. You have shown that it can be done. And that you can actually transform your life if you'll do the work. Oh, no, I don't want to do the work.
Yeah.
No. So I have to stay away from you, or I have to get you to a place where you stop. And then I feel more comfortable. And then you catch my cooties. You just as sick as I am. And I like that.
I'm laughing because it's true. I asked the question and then it's like, it really rings true. Like, it's so crazy. It's so unfortunate. Like, why does this have to be the place where we pull each other in? Like, why couldn't it be on the other side of that? Why can't it be on the, I don't know, like the improvement, let's eat well together. Let's take a walk. Let's watch a movie. Let's eat junk. Like, you know what I mean? Like, when we're talking about this real healing, self-preservation, even, it always becomes not about the self anymore. Even when my husband and I sat down and wrote this out, we made a note to make sure we included in the correspondence, like, when we talk about self, let's not necessarily talk about the self as a parent or as anything else. Like, yeah, that comes up. We talk about ourselves as these things, but for that to not be like the focus, right? Because like I said, it gets a little easier to be a wife or a mom than to be Naaila, Ndola, Angelica, because that's so much more complicated. It's complex. It's not neatly packaged. And I guess I'm just the kind of person that feels like it doesn't, why should it be? Like, why do we do that?
I want to give the sister the opportunity to.
Oh, yeah, because we brought you back in.
I had to, so I work in a basement in downtown Phoenix, and they locked me in the building. So right before I got up to use the bathroom, the alarm went off. I shut the alarm off. Anyway, our Phoenix Police Department I've been locked down here so many times that when I went upstairs, they just knocked on my window and I went upstairs and they said, Miss Ali, you again? I said, yeah, it's me. It's me again. So I just had to go talk to the police.
Okay. You were so calm and collected.
Right. They were like, we just glad that you're okay. We know that you're down here in this basement and we got the alarm. So I had to just go, get them together. So I did not even hear the question. I literally just came and sat back down.
No problem. When your screen went out, I was like, well, let me put her backstage. I don't know what's going on. I'm glad it wasn't really a problem. Everything is okay.
Yeah, I had to go all the way up to the second floor from the basement, and so.
Gotcha. But essentially, we were just talking about the way that people talk about our. I can't even get my words together. Naaila, can you rephrase what we were talking about?
She had asked, how is it that people are so much more comfortable with staying in places that lack authenticity? And they give you these instructions to be this and be this and be this, but you need to do it like this.
I think it's easy to be in places of pain because that's something that we know very well. It's not easy to show up as your authentic self, right? There are some traumas that we're comfortable with because that's a pain we know. We don't want to deal with a pain that we don't know. And there's a pain that comes with self-reflection and self-development. There is a level of conversation that you have to have with yourself that is very courageous, and it's not nice. You have to read yourself for filth sometimes, and you don't want to do that with yourself, and you certainly don't want to do that with a partner. So it's easier for us to have these traumatic, calamitous conversations and pairings, and then have really hot makeup sex later than for us to really have authentic, deep, emotional and intellectual connections with each other. It's healthy relationships look good on Instagram memes, but in real life they are messy and raggedy. I mean, the end result is beautiful, but the process is maddening, and a lot of people are not comfortable with that.
That's all facts. It's so true.
That's very true. Because what I was thinking about is you take a person who is working with you, because Angelica and I, we actually work with some of the same souls. And, and seeing their embodiment and seeing their transformation from this perspective and your perspective, the work that you do, and seeing these women evolve. I mean, like right now, I'm getting goosebumps. Thinking about what I've seen them do, but I've also seen people get afraid of themselves.
Yeah.
Because I don't know this woman.
Yep.
I had one who, she was suffering from anxiety. I mean, to the point where she had to, from the what are they calling it? The insurrection, what they calling it at the Capitol. But she had such a bad panic attack from it that she ended up in the ER. And so we go through all the steps and things to get her anxiety de-escalated. And then she was uncomfortable with that. So you're not having panic attacks and you're wondering if you're doing it right.
That reminds me of that baby, the baby who has a hand in the banister and they're crying because they're stuck. And then they go up to the baby and just say, all you got to do is take your hand out, and the baby starts crying, and then they stick their hand back in and start crying. Yeah, that's what it's like.
Yes, exactly. You did the work. Give yourself credit for it. I'll do that part. But to understand that it is absolutely normal to do the work and then get the benefit of the relief.
Yeah. I remember at one point during my therapy journey, my sister sent me this meme, and it said something to the effect of, be careful not to get addicted to that person, that traumatized person, and be open to who's on the other side of it. And she's like, that's not about you. I was like, but it's cool. Like it fits. Like, who doesn't that fit? Anybody that's working through something can relate to that reality. And it made me realize that before I had gone to therapy, I was a little addicted to that traumatized person. I had kind of settled in on some of these caricatures that I had created of myself that were based in this thing that happened to me and that thing that didn't go my way. And I'm this person in the family, and I'm this person at school, and very little of it was real. And it used to really puzzle me why people would sometimes respond to me the way that they did, because I saw underneath all of that some of myself, but I'm like, but they responded like this. So why are they doing this if I'm like that? And the people who were close to me had the same question, because we were all seeing a slightly more authentic version of me versus what I was putting out there. And it wasn't until I did that very uncomfortable, very unpleasant, never ever wanted to do it, don't ever want to have to do it again type of reflection and work that I realized, oh, I was a little anxious. I was terrible sometimes. I'm the villain in some people's story. And that's not something that I thought would ever be true. And it's not something I'm comfortable with. But some of those people I don't have touch with anymore. And so at one point I was like, am I going to do like an AA thing? I got to find people and make amends. Like, how do I find these people? How do I find these people? Because I was so mean to you for no reason. I mean, it was a reason internally, but you didn't deserve that, But where I was with myself was just, oh Lord, help us all. It was just not good. And I don't remember. I think I even asked my mom one time, like, was I a bad child? Like, was I mischievous? And she was like, no, you were really sweet and pretty well behaved. And I said, so when I started cutting up, why y'all ain't put me in therapy? Like, y'all ain't know something was wrong. I went from being kind of decent to terrible. Like, what happened there? And she was like, yeah, well, we didn't know. We did what we could. They did the best they could. And so it was on me at a certain point to have to say, do I want to be this person? Do I want to do these things? Do I want to be these things? Or do I want to be something else? And initially I was like, yeah, I don't feel like doing that work. I don't want to be inspired. I don't want to be motivated. And I wouldn't say it out loud because I knew how it sounded. And one day one of my sisters was trying to get me to go listen to, I think, Aisha Prime. And I was like, I'm good, because she's motivating. She's so inspirational. You can't listen to her and not want to act and be a better person. So yeah, I'm straight. And she was like, Ndola, that's trifling. Let's go. And she drugged me. And that was kind of like the beginning of that whole real oneself work. And so like from people that you guys work with, like what usually is the catalyst for people? Like what brings people into this space of change or realization or even openness? Because I remember actively feeling like I know it's not bubble baths and sparkling juice. That's not real. That's TV. I don't want to do that work because I also knew that it would bring up family stuff and marriage stuff and childhood stuff that I had tucked away so neatly that I had forgotten about a lot of it until questions are asked and I'm having to recall. So to get back to the question, what kind of stuff do you see people get to that brings them to a point of being able to do some of this kind of work? I know it might not be a clean question.
Sometimes it's a transition. And when I say transition, it's my kids are teenagers now and I don't know how to parent them. So I'm struggling. A divorce. Me and my husband and I, we haven't been getting along for years. My mother died. It's usually some type of transition. And then there are those who don't know what's wrong, but just, I'm tired. Whatever it is, I'm tired. I'm tired of living this way, and I don't even know what to call it.
Yeah.
So those are particularly those things. But even then, we're talking about authenticity and being vulnerable, and you have people who come in to do some type of work, but this is what I say, okay, what is it what's your goal? I never ask, what do you want to work on? Ask the goal. How do you want to see How do you want to experience yourself in a certain amount of time? And they'll give me these very comfortable words. I just want to communicate with my husband better. I want to communicate with my mother. Y'all are communicating. Y'all cuss each other out every Sunday. Y'all communicate. And so, but they say things like that, but it's usually something that they don't speak of.
Yeah.
And so something gets them there, but there's something else that needs to be addressed once they get there that they never considered. I didn't see that. I never thought about it like that. And it's blatant. It's just as obvious to me as the two of you are sitting here on this screen. But we have a wonderful way of being blind voluntarily.
Yeah.
I think for me, one of the, what Naaila said is absolutely true. And a lot of women kind of come to me not knowing if they want to have a breakthrough or if they're ready to do the work. They just want to know how I got to be how I am. Well, I see you doing all this. Well, how are you able to do this? Especially non-Black women. There are so many non-Black Muslim women who are like, you mean the imam didn't cuss you out because you're talking about sex? You mean it's okay for you to, wear press-on nails and, makeup and still be talking about Allah? Like, what? They're curious. And so they think that I have something, and this is not all of them. They may think that I have something unattainable that they can't have. And I'm like, no, I'm just regular, just like you. And that's one thing that I love about Naaila and Hassan. They show, this is marriage. Sometimes marriage is this. Sometimes marriage is you didn't ate all of the food that I cooked. It's showing the reality. And so I try to show people the reality and let them know that there was a time in my life that people did not think I was a good person.
Yeah.
There's a pathologizing of womanhood that starts very early.
Yes.
And it's only at 45 that I'm able to see that the traits and attributes that I use in my work to help women heal are the very traits and attributes that I was vilified for as a child. The very things that people pay me money to be the same way that I was at 10 and 12 years old when people would tell me, you think you better than everybody. No, I don't. I just really love myself a whole lot. You think you're very smart. I actually am quite intelligent. Yes, I am. But there's this idea that we have to cut people down to size, especially girls. And we pathologize womanhood and we try to fit it into this little box. So when you break out of it, people are like, well, how you get free? We want to know how to get on the other side of the and they don't know that that's what's happening when they interact with the work. But then when they get into a workshop and they get into a conversation and they get into circles with other women who are doing the work, they're like, okay, I don't know what part of the pool I've jumped in, but I'm wet now. Let me just soak it all in. And it's really about life stages, right? So, because if I have women who are 23, 24, baby, you still in puberty. You at the tail end of it, but you're still in puberty. You 27, 28, 29, 30, you just out of puberty. Now you're grown. You thought you were grown at 18, you thought you were grown at 25, you 30, now you're grown. Now you have a whole new life. But wait a minute, you 42 and you finna go through a second puberty called menopause. And you're like, ooh, this is a whole new world for real. Or maybe you're 50 and you're like, you know what, for the first time in my life, I really love myself, but I need to know how to do it better. It really, for the work that I do, since I'm not talking to couples, I'm only talking to women. Other women are the catalyst for other women to start that healing journey. When they see that this person did it and they didn't die. This person did it and they didn't get kicked out the masjid. This person did it, and look how she's flowering. That helps. So we really use the power of sisterhood to encourage women to take those steps and to have those uncomfortable conversations. And we have uncomfortable conversations with each other.
You
know, I tell women all the time, I tell people, I'm not a nice person. I have never been a nice person. I am quiet. If you meet me in person, I'm the person at the party who's sitting on the side or in the corner, unless my jam comes on, and then I'm going to dance. I'm not dancing in the circle with the sisters because y'all don't be dancing right. I'm going to come and do my dance by myself, right? I'm very private. I'm not nice, but I'm very kind. I'm very kind. I'm generous. I will help you, but I'm not oh, hey, girl. That's never been me. And I don't believe I owe the world niceness, right? I'm kind and I'm generous and I'm respectful. So I'm very comfortable having tough conversations with people who enter the space. I'm very comfortable with telling women, this may not be the place for you. You may not be ready, and it may not be time, and this may not be the place, and I may not be your teacher. So I think that is also a part of the catalyst for change. That's also the push that some women need, because some women are like, oh, dang, I'm not ready. But, maybe I need to do some self-reflection. And then that starts a whole other process. I think Naaila would agree. In the work that we do, we also have to not be so self-centered on ourselves to think that we are the answer for every person.
Yeah.
Sometimes we are just.
I just know that.
Yeah, but you have some people who think that. Some people who are like, no, well, if you can't get healed in my program, then there's something wrong with you. That's another form of trauma. We ain't gonna talk about that right now, right? Because there's a provider-induced trauma. But sometimes just having that conversation, having that, you may not be ready yet conversation with someone could be the catalyst for them starting their healing journey with a different person. So I think that's another thing that I consider when I'm working with women.
I think it was really cool how you were able to just kind of say, I am this. I've worked with children for a very long time, and children can do that. Little ones, no problem. Write about yourself. Oh, I'm this. I can do this. I'm special because this. Right around middle school, it's not happening no more. And for so many people, it never comes back. And then when you do it again, or if you never stopped, that's that problem. Like, how dare she say that she's smart or whatever? Because I those things I think we have in common. Like, I've always been pretty sure that I was smarter than average. I didn't know if I was a genius. I didn't know if I was like, where or fail. I never took an IQ test, but I knew that when I was at school and people were getting things explained to them, like, y'all still don't know what's happening. And then it kind of went from there. I pick up things very easily. And I remember times when I would say, oh, no, I am smart. And it'll be like, or I am this, or I am that. And I definitely let it quiet that voice, literally and figuratively. And I won't never forget, I was at my children's school after I had a homeschool program for 7 years. And then finally I put them in a very good friend of mine's program, Kilombo. We talk about it all the time. It's an amazing program. So I'm dropping them off at school, and I noticed the halls are absolutely empty. And so I started singing, and I got a little bit louder. So now I'm, in the hall singing, and I get through the door, and I just take it all the way up, and I am just jamming. And somebody said, who's that singing? And I was like, oh my God, like, I can't believe were you listening the whole time? And she was like, yeah, but you sound good though. And I was like, no, I don't. And just like that, it dawned on me, I have been afraid of my voice all this time. I went from this moment of this carefree, I'm just singing some random India.Arie or Jill Scott song, to realizing I haven't sung in random hallways because I was scared of my voice. I was afraid of my voice. I was afraid of who might hear what I said, how it would come out, how it would be. And I had to make a decision right then and there. Are you going to keep doing that? Or are you going to sing off key a little bit more? I know I don't have a beautiful voice. I don't care anymore though. It's a non-issue. And so it made me think about how many things we're afraid of, how many of our voices do we keep quiet? How many times do we say, well, these people are around, so I'm not going to? And I don't mean in a professional setting where it's not necessarily appropriate to just stand up in a conference room and start singing, but at home with our whatever. It was such an odd realization. And I found myself trying to pour this up into my girls now. Like one of my daughters, subhanAllah, her voice was terrible when she was small. I mean, just the worst sound. I just wanted to tape her little mouth shut. But she loved to sing. And so I made myself not ever say anything about it. Negative. I got her some voice lessons. I would let her sing in the bathroom, and Aziza, go sing this. And now, mashallah, the girl has a beautiful voice. Like she's 13 and she's one of the best singers in her school. And so she's been singing for like our stuff and all of this. And that came after my whole realization of having been afraid of my own voice. And it was kind of like a full circle moment. Like when I learned to not be afraid of mine, I was able to pass that to her and block her from people that would say, "Ooh, who's singing? Like, what is that noise?" And so she never knew she didn't sound nice, right? She's never been afraid of her voice. And so now at 13, which is such a difficult age, she's able to sing and draw and I just think about all of the other young people coming behind me who might never be afraid of their voice because they've heard you speak or because they've heard you counsel someone, all those types of things. So how often do you see people have those moments of these kind of transformative kind of moments? Like, is it something that happens often, or like with a lot of people, or how does that sometimes work for people?
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
But it may take people a while to give something like that sound, because they will focus on giving other things, words, but getting to the place where you feel comfortable giving it sound. And this goes back to what you were saying about, giving yourself sound, giving yourself permission, to sing in the hallway. And then people go into you, Angelica, and they're wondering, how did you do it? They didn't kick you out of the masjid. And really the question is this: how did you do it and not get banned? How did you do it and not get shunned? How did you do it and people didn't talk about you? Guess what, baby? They did. I just didn't care.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true.
They did talk about me. I don't do my events at the masjid because the masjid can't take me. I go to the masjid for June, nikah, for spiritual events, not for healing, not for this type of healing. And, when you were talking about, Angelica, there was some of you where people come and they went, how did you do it? And they think, well, you did it. You can help me do it. You did it. Naaila, what did you do? As if there's some secret recipe. I am a healer. I am not a savior. And what I do is I guide healing. I can guide your healing, but you dictate, you tell me where you want to go. Just like you tell, I want to go to Hajj. I want to go to a restaurant. Okay, we can map out a path for you to get to your destination. But I'm not driving. I'm just along for the ride. I am not here to save you. I am not taking that on. And if you are looking for that, I'm not that person. I'm not here for
you. Yeah.
It's funny because people, I'm sure you get DMs like this, but people will DM me and say, well, Angelica, I'm really interested in the work that you do, and I would really like to do this work in my community. Is there a course I can take? Is there a certification program, a book I can read? And I'm like, no, there isn't. And it's almost a disrespectful question, like, well, what you do is so easy. There must be some 6-week course or, training that I can do.
And you should put it together.
And I've had people tell me, you should certify people to be village aunties. I said, that's not how this works.
Do you know how much I would have to pay just to trademark the content? You know, because this is still a business.
It
You know,
is.
they have no idea about how much it costs and how much time it takes to be in the business of self.
And how much money we could charge if we were men. But that's a whole different conversation. That's a whole different conversation.
Totally. And because I'm a woman, it's supposed to be a reduced rate.
And because you Black and you Muslim, it's supposed to be free, because fi sabilillah is in fact
that free sabilillah. Yeah.
And you know, it's funny because people will say, well, you did this and nobody shunned you. People shun me all the time.
Exactly. Every day.
All the time. But I think I've come to a point in my life where you cannot throw darts at me, because I have accepted all of the things that you try to weaponize to harm me. I had somebody slide in my DMs the other day. It was from some burner account on Instagram, and I was looking for something else, and I came across this because I don't usually check my DMs, but I was checking for something from a friend. And somebody sent me a DM about, you're so fat, you need to lose weight before Ramadan so you don't take up all the space in the masjid. And I said, I am pretty hot and tempting, aren't I? I'm plump. Because I lived the majority of my life as a very, very thin woman, like very thin woman. People tell me I'm fat all the time, and I'm like, aren't I? Because that's not an insult to me. It's not an insult for you to tell me that I'm fat, because I love being full figure. It never comes from men, ever. It always comes
men, is particularly Black men.
They like that. They be in my DMs for a whole other reason.
Right. But admiration for the thickness.
It usually comes from women who are either plus size or one glass of water away from being plus size. So they're projecting. And I know what it is. It's hurt. It's pain. Because, Angelica, how dare you take a full body picture and be almost 6 feet tall and weigh I don't know how many pounds? How dare you, put yourself out there like that in a way that I'm uncomfortable with doing? I firmly believe that when people have a problem like that, it really has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with them.
Yeah.
So, about singing and, accepting these parts of themselves, having these aha moments where they're like, you know what? I'm not going to be afraid of my voice. That has to be something that's self-motivated. It does not happen for everybody. And you have to be a person who can thrive on internal validation, not external validation. You have to do it afraid, and you have to do it with no applause. You have to show up, in the clothing that you like, with the voice that you have, with the looks that you have, and just be confident that you are all of that. And you don't need anybody else to tell you that. And that's difficult. It's difficult to be internally motivated.
I mean, did it make you want to go look in the mirror?
Like, oh my God, I am just, Lord. Oh, I would marry myself. But people mistake that for arrogance. People mistake that for vanity. But that is self-love. I was, the other day, I made some food. I made some yassa. I ain't made yassa in a long time. And I was like, this food is good. And I was sitting in my office eating. And somebody came around the corner and said, Angelica, are you talking to yourself? I said, yes, because I cook I really can cook. I put my whole foot in here. I should be happy when I get up from the desk, because one whole foot is gone because it's in this pot of food. That kind of bigging yourself up and talking heavy to yourself, we discourage it. We discourage it. And that's where you said middle school is where it starts to shift. I have a daughter who's 13. I have a son who's 15. So I see it. Their 5-year-old brother will say, Mommy, how come I can't have cookies? I'm the cutest one in the family. And I'm like, yeah, you are. You are, in fact, the cutest one in the family. I encourage that, because I don't want them to lose it. But we have to really give our children that spiritual armor, because somebody out in the world is going to try to dump them down. We want to create adults who don't have to discover their voice in a school hallway.
Absolutely.
And that's difficult. It's difficult.
But culturally, Black and brown children and people have been told that if you love and like yourself to that degree, then you too big for your britches.
Yeah.
You're too high and mighty. And even parents do what they can to lovingly limit you. They do it under the guise of love, and so that you can be prepared for the world. How do you tell a child to be prepared for the world, but then to feel like they don't belong in it at the same time?
Yeah. 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 One of my middle child, I'm pretty sure it was the middle one. She was boo-hooing one day. And I'm like, what is wrong with you? And she's like, that boy called me ugly. And I'm like, babe, come on. Are you ugly? And she was like, no. I said, what are you? I mean, I'm gorgeous, but he still called me ugly. I was like, if you don't get out of my face. That didn't even bother you. Well, he shouldn't have said it. I said, you're right. That wasn't nice. It wasn't a kind thing to say, but you're good. And those kind of moments, they legit make me feel good. Like I'm really giving them some of the stuff that other people never ever get. Like you said, some people never really reach that moment. And the goal is to not be in your mid-30s discovering your voice, discovering yourself. And I do tell my daughters frequently, like, you guys are not, you're not normal. The way you're being raised is not normal. You might find sometimes you don't really fit in certain spaces, but here's a space where you can fit. Find your tribe. You have family, you have other people who are being raised similar to you. And sometimes I talk with my husband and my friends about the way we're raising our children and how abnormal it truly is, and why it's just crazy how abnormal it is. Like, why isn't it normal that we're encouraging our children like this? Why are we preparing them? I had a friend's husband who used to cuss at his kids all the time. I was like, why do you speak to them that way? Is it because this is what they're gonna hear when they leave? And I was like, well, can't they have peace at home at least? Like, you know, these is my kids. I was like, well, you can't cuss at mine. Like we're not doing that. But they're not gonna get healed from preventable stuff at home. You know what I mean? Like some stuff is gonna happen. They're gonna need therapy, I'm sure. But it's not gonna be avoidable things. I don't want them to have stuff that we know is coming be on the list of things that they need. But okay, what was my little note? I had another question that I wanted to ask you guys, and I got lost in the conversation. So mindfulness. Okay, that was the topic. So when it comes to mindfulness, how do you like help people maneuver through that space? Like I don't ever remember hearing about that when I was younger. Something that I learned about as an educator, actually, trying to figure out ways to not have to discipline my students so much. And I came across a school that used a mindfulness room instead of detention or punishment and things like that. So does that come up often in your line of work, like the concept and the use of mindfulness? Angelica?
Yes, it comes up. It comes up quite a bit, and there's a comment in the feed that I wanna make sure I don't
I missed it.
For us to talk about. But yes, mindfulness comes up a lot, and with the work that I do, the majority of the women that I work with are Muslim, Christian, or have some type of faith-based framework, and we talk about how mindfulness is innate to a lot of the spiritual practices that we have.
Yeah.
But we treat them as routine and not as meditative practices as they should be. So, you know, we do a lot of grounding. We do a lot of breathing techniques. In my Rites of Passage program, I give very short but very heavy homework assignments where women have to just be mindful about how they talk to their bodies, mindful about the scripts that they have been fed since they were a child. And mindfulness is, you know, there's a huge market for like mindfulness meditation techniques, and I'm going to go to this seminar about mindfulness, and it's really just about slowing down and paying attention. And it's something that children do very well naturally.
Yep.
And it's something that we lose in the cacophony of modern life and being busy and grind culture. We don't want to slow down, but mindfulness is really just about slowing down and listening to that inner self. And, for me, my inner self, that's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? That's my creator. What has my creator told me to do, in his book and, in the guideposts that I have from Islam. So mindfulness forms a big core of the work that I do, but it's also something that a lot of women are resistant to because it can be uncomfortable. And silence can be deafening.
Yeah.
You have to face those thoughts and those emotions and those feelings that come up. It can be very, very difficult. I've had women where we are just doing just some simple grounding breaths for a class, and they will bust out in tears. And I'm like, well, we didn't even do nothing yet. What happened? Oh, I'm just thinking about this. So just that idea of slowing down is something that we should do every day, because it makes tasks a lot simpler. But it also pushes against this idea that we always have to be multitasking. We always have to be doing this. We have to be thinking about a million things a minute. But mindfulness allows us to be so much more productive because we're giving attention to that thing that deserves our time. And in the work that Naaila and I do, that thing is yourself. Yeah. That thing is your relationship. And sometimes that's what you're running away from. You're running away from yourself. You're running away from your relationships.
Before Naaila, before you answer, you said there was a comment. I was trying to stay.
Yeah. So Nasheed Jackson, author, he said, I don't know him. He's from Atlanta.
I'm familiar with Brother Nasheed.
So Nasheed says, this one got me. He says, so even the husband needs to go to therapy when there's only something wrong with the wife. So let's just come back a little bit. Nothing has to be wrong for you to go to therapy. Yes. There's nothing wrong with you if you go to therapy. Every human being can go to therapy. And if you are in a relationship that is emotionally vulnerable, that is emotionally safe, that is spiritually connected, if there is an issue that one of the partners, the wife or the husband, has in the relationship, yes, in fact, you might need to go and talk to this mental health professional along with your spouse, because there are two people who exist in a relationship. But I want us to move away from, if there's something wrong with the wife, nothing has to be wrong with you for you to go to therapy. In fact, that's how you prevent things from being quote unquote wrong with you, right. By going to therapy. So that was just a little bit like, I had to.
I felt the same. I felt the same jerk when when I
didn't even see that message, comment.
But the other part is, that word wrong. All of us are flawed. We are perfect. We are perfectly imperfect. We are just as we are. And this idea that, healers and helpers help people because there's something wrong with them. And I'm hesitant to use the word broken, because it means that you're just all over the place and it's difficult for you to be reassembled. But the thing is that what self-help or development, because it doesn't have to be therapy. It could be, going to Indola and making sure that the two of you benefit from your sisterhood contract that y'all got going. There is healing so many ways. It could be, listening to Angelica's videos or taking her course. There are so many ways to get to it. But what I do, this is not to correct what's wrong. There are gifts within you that you don't use.
Yeah.
And I'm looking for them. I want to tap into what has been sitting dormant within you that you can do you can use to transform your life. So the idea that something is wrong because the only way they get to their destination is that there is so much in them that's right.
Yep.
So you can tell we don't subscribe to that.
That was two very spot on responses, Brother Nasheed. So another thing that I wanted to make sure I brought up was the idea of needs versus wants. So I remember when I was growing up, we learned that food, clothing, shelter, these are needs. And of course, as you get a little older, you realize how insufficient that is. Like, that's not true. If you have food, clothing, and shelter, all of your needs aren't met. And so how does that play into what you guys come across in your line of work in terms of people discovering themselves or coming to terms with themselves, this idea that their needs aren't met, or even conflating needs and wants? Naaila, if you could go first this time.
I'm thinking if they think like that, they probably wouldn't come to me.
I've heard it so much, though. I hear it. I mean,
I agree. I agree. People talk very much about self-love and taking care of yourself, but it's always around the areas of superficial.
Yeah.
Such as take yourself out to dinner, going to get a pedicure, something that takes care of you externally and meets perhaps a need for survival, or meets a need of just maintenance, your hair done. You need it. That's maintenance. I don't really care if you go to the salon or if you go to the kitchen sink.
Right.
You need to wash your hair.
You gotta wash your hair.
Right, and so we stay in those places, but if you up the ante, and I can't remember them all right now, but there are some things after your immediate needs are met. People want to be loved, they want to be accepted, they want to be recognized, and there's one more, and I can't think of what it is right now. But these are the things that people they want to get to a place of self-actualization. Because I can have food, clothing, and shelter. I work with some people who are quite wealthy.
Yeah.
However, you're in your Mercedes on 285, crying in tears.
Yeah.
Talking to me.
Yeah.
And so this is a person who has all of those needs, but internally, the needs are not being met. So this goes back to, again, vulnerability and being authentic, satisfying our unmet needs in very surface and superficial ways.
Yeah. Did you have something to add to that, Angelica?
Yeah, I think a lot of women are ashamed for having wants.
Yeah, you're not supposed to do that.
You're supposed to take the bare minimum.
Yeah.
You should be happy you have a man. So what if he can't please you in the bedroom? This man goes to work, he pays all the bills, he's a good father, and you want him to give you a good time in the bedroom too? Sister, you asking for too much. We're not going to talk about Islamically how it's her right, but a lot of women think that I'm wrong for having a want, right? I want to get married, so I'm going to accept the bare minimum, just the bare minimum. He's breathing, he's available to get married, and he wants to marry me. That's it. And he prays 5 times a day. That's maybe. That's it. I'm just going to fix, because I can fix him, because of the love from a good woman can transform a man. And that's a lie.
Boldface.
That's a bold-faced lie, because people don't change other people. People change when they want to change. So one of the things that I encourage women to do is I encourage them to develop a list of wants. What do you want from your life?
That's beautiful.
What is it, not just that you need, but what is it that you really want? And let them know it is okay to have wants. It's okay to have desires. It is okay to have luxury, whatever that means for you. I don't mean a $5,000 handbag, but if you can afford it, you can do that. But what is going to bring your life joy? What is going to bring your life meaning? It's okay to indulge. And I find that for a lot of Black women, that is difficult, because we have been taught by our mothers, our grandmothers, our aunties to be long-suffering. We make our plate.
Piety.
Yeah, yes, that's piety. When you cook that meal, you take your plate last. When you get paid, you make sure that you get the kids new clothes. When it's Eid time, everybody's ready on Eid morning. And mama is rushing out at the last minute, trying to put a safety pin under her hijab, wearing a jilbab that she bought 3 years ago. No. And I think it's important to develop that list of wants, because then we give permission for the other people in our lives to indulge themselves as well.
Yep.
So we show our children how they can care for themselves. We show our spouse, right? Our husbands, you love me, but I also love me.
Yeah.
And that's okay. You spoil me, but I also spoil me. My husband said it's very difficult to buy gifts for you, Angelica. I said, why? He said, because you buy them all for yourself. I said, because I'm my favorite person.
Yeah.
So why shouldn't I?
Just like that.
And he said, I don't know what to do with you. I said, but that's okay, because the things that I need from him and want from him, they don't have money attached to them.
Yeah.
So I can have my wants and fulfill them, but the wants that I get from you, you don't have to buy them at, Bergdorf's. You can just, just be yourself. You give me a foot rub. That don't cost no money, right? So I think this idea that we have to just, in order to be pious and to be good women, we have to just be bare bones. We off that. It's 2021. We not on that no more.
Yeah.
You were about to say something, Naaila?
My husband, he calls me a flight risk. Because he knows that he has to do the work in order to keep me invested. And I, the same. It goes both ways. But he knows that things don't motivate me. I can get myself things.
Yeah,
I want other things from you. I want things from you that I can't. Ain't nothing like the companionship of man. I can't give myself that.
Yeah.
I can give myself something else. And those are the things that I want from him. And I want them consistently.
Yeah.
And that's in the most beautiful way that he can offer. And if I don't have it, well, tell me, what am I here for?
I will never forget the day that I told my husband I didn't need him. And he was like, wait a minute, time out. What you mean you don't? And I was like, no, hear me out. I don't need you. If Allah forbid something happened to you and I was fine, I might be sad, I might grieve, but I would be okay. I would have to keep going. I want you here. I want to be with you. And there was a time that I thought I needed him. And so I'm very clear about the difference. And once I realized that I had gotten to this new place, I felt it was important to share that with him, because I did tell him when I thought I needed him. And so I was explaining to him that it was growth. Like, this is a good thing at this point where I know I don't need you. And realistically, you don't need me. Like we were told in our premarital counseling, the concept of two people coming together to make one is terrible. It's terrible advice. It's faulty. It causes problems. Y'all are two individuals that are coming together to complement one another, but you got to still be individuals. And we definitely lost that somewhere along the way. And so when I told him I didn't need him, he was his little ego was hurt a little bit. His feelings was hurt. But once I explained it, it definitely softened a lot. And now it's just a given. Like, oh yeah, I know you don't really need me to do that, but can I do this thing for you? You sure can. I want you to take that trash out, but I could drag that trash on out of here. But now I don't want to.
You know, with respect to what you were saying, Angelica, having that list of wants, regardless of the relationships and your family ties, that list is your list.
Mm-hmm.
That list of my needs and my wants and my desires, that is Naaila's list, Angelica's list, and Dola's list, regardless of your relationships, because that is about you being who you innately are.
Right.
What we have done, though, we have intentionally selected specific people to fulfill some of those things on the list. I want you to do it. I like the way you do it. I like the way my husband does it. But even if he didn't do it, I'm still going to want it. I'm still going to have a desire for it. It's just that you have chosen your husband to do it. But you still want that. You still need that in his presence and in his absence.
I think that's what scares some men about women who are entrepreneurs or women who are leaders. Men will say, I don't want my wife to work. And, somebody said, oh, Angelica, you're an alpha female. I said, I absolutely am not, honey. I am a damsel in distress. I ain't carrying no bags. I ain't taking the trash out. I ain't changing the oil in the car. No, I am not strong.
None of that.
Right. But people see you behave, they see you, with your own company, with your own brand and doing these things and, being able to buy things for yourself. And a lot of men can be intimidated, but I want the brothers to understand it's exactly what you said, Ndola. I need companionship and I want you to be the person to give it to me. I'm going to go out on a limb. No, I'm just going to speak for myself. I'm going to speak for myself.
You can speak for me, sister. Go ahead.
Most strong, and I'm not saying strong like I can do anything, I don't need a man. That's not what I'm talking about. But most independent, powerful women who have self-actualized love a partner who will take charge.
Oh, yes.
They love assuming a very traditional role in the home.
I am.
They love making their husband's plates.
Yes.
And having them smile when the food tastes good. They love, making sure the bed is made, because this is a space where I don't have to be powerful. I don't have to be the boss. I don't have to be the leader. I can be vulnerable. I can be soft. I can lean into this relationship. And I think that that's what's missing in a lot of these conversations. Brothers are like, well, I don't want to go for that sister because, sisters like that, they got a whole lot of mouth. I got a lot of mouth in the boardroom. Because that's, that's the role that I'm taking. But I like the safety of a relationship where I can be vulnerable, I can be soft, and I'm just going to say the S word, I can be submissive because I want to be. Not dominated, not controlled. There's a difference. There's a difference between domination and control, and a woman willingly conceding a bit of her power so that she can rest. Because that's something that we don't get. We don't get to rest. So our relationships should be places of rest. And a lot of very powerful women seek that out in their relationships. That's why you can see a woman who runs $1 million company and her husband drives a school bus, because that man gives her some rest. It ain't about how much money he makes. It's about how he can fulfill that list of wants and give her what she needs at the same time. So I just need to say
that's the truth. That's the truth. Yeah. I'm very conservative. That's the safe word, personally. And like you, Angelica, you were talking about your personality. I am not friendly. I'm not. But I work in a space that forces me to be friendly. I'm not friendly. I'm quiet. I won't talk. I prefer to listen. I learned so much more by listening, but being able to, you do it. I want you to be over that affair. Versus because outside, I have to be over this, and I have to be over this, and I have to be over this. And when I see him, I'm safe. I don't have to do anything. You want some more food, baby? Are you full? And I sit there just watch him chew. You good? Okay. There's a lot of comfort in that. There's a lot of.
I was gonna say the only thing on your list that I don't really do much anymore is make the plate. I don't do the plate making. When we had a child and then 2 years later had another child and then 3 years later had another child, I was like, too many plates.
No, I
making a plate. And so we actually talked about it. Like, it was a whole thing because we were at iftars and he would be one of the only men in line who was married. And he pulled me to the side and he was like, okay, now they're over there telling me, right? So let me ask you this before I say anything. Do sisters be talking about their husbands when they got all the kids and they got to make the plates? And I said, yes, we do. Because y'all grown and y'all got 2 feet and y'all don't grab near a child and you want her to make your plate. And he was like, you know what? Don't ever make my plate again. I ain't trying to be on that list. And it was just like this thing. And of course, when we're home and things are chill, I don't mind. But like when we're out and about, he knows he had, well, now the girls are bigger, but when they were smaller, whoever's not nursing, go to daddy. You make their plates. I got this child. And it was like, it really worked well. And people definitely side-eyed me for that. Like, you're not making your husband's plate? I'll make his plate. Oh, go ahead.
No, ma'am, you will not make his plate. You gonna go sit down. He gonna make it with his own hands because we ain't playing that kind of game either.
It was auntie. It wasn't people my age.
Okay.
It was his community mamas because he's such a good man. You gonna not make his plate? I am nursing babies. I'm making other plates. Okay, I'm feeding babies. So no, nobody my age ever. Alhamdulillah, I never had that kind of challenge with no sisters. It was his other mamas that was like, shame on you not making that brother's plate. He grown.
I don't make plates in public. I don't make public.
Yeah, it was a public thing.
I don't make public plates, and the only reason why I make his plate for the most part now is because he's Ghanaian, and he's like, I don't know what goes with what. He'll be like, I don't know how, like, what food goes together, and I was like, what do you mean? Sometimes he doesn't understand. Like, he'll put 4 salmon croquettes and 2 pieces of cornbread and a bowl of greens, and I'm like, that's not how that's supposed to go. Let's reconfigure it and do it again. It's like, but I think that that's one of the things that, now I'm really gonna put my foot and make some sisters mad. But I think that's one of the challenges that I have with the way that modern feminism has been used to empower women. I already have my power, so I don't need to perpetuate toxic patriarchal structures within my family where I just take the man out and put the woman on top and try to gain power in the household. I don't need to say, well, you get up and make your plate and you do this and I'm not doing this. You just making me do this because I'm a woman and you're a man. No, I'm doing this because I want to do it. I don't have to seek my power by dominating someone else because I don't want someone to dominate me. And like Naaila, I'm probably a lot more conservative than my followers might think I am in my home, but that's a culture that I create in my home. It has nothing to do with anybody else. That's a safety that I have. Other people may have it differently, but I think when you come to a sense of yourself, you don't have to try so hard in every area to show that you really got it, because you have it. You know yourself. You know that you love yourself. So then you can share a bit of yourself with everybody around you. And it's not a power struggle.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know we talked about a lot of amazing things. I've been just thinking about the people that inshallah has been watching or will see it later and what they can pull from it. And I'm also seeing that we're right about at time. So I wanted to ask if you guys had any kind of final thoughts or like a wrap up thought kind of thing to share.
Going back to oneself, and we've talked a lot about your voice, listening to yourself and being present, and to understand that if you don't listen to yourself internally, that you are not going to be able to hear the healthy words of another person. Mm-hmm. Healthy words. Yeah. If you don't listen to the best parts of you, when you hear it externally and outside of you, you will become mute to that sound. So start hearing it and feeling and recognizing the sensations on the inside. So when you hear it out here, maybe it'll just sound like a distant echo, but you'll be able to notice it. If you don't hear healthy and good and beautiful here, you just can't recognize it on the outside.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. And any Any final thoughts from you, Sister Angelica?
Just it's okay to be totally, completely, almost disgustingly in love with yourself. It is totally okay because you have to love yourself. You have to be your favorite person. You should be your favorite person. You should love yourself with the same love that you give other people. And it's okay. It's okay to put yourself first. This is especially for women. It's not selfish. Sometimes it's necessary. Sometimes it's a tool of survival to put yourself first. And that doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It doesn't mean that you're an arrogant person. It just means that you're a person who truly loves yourself. And that's not something that anybody else can give you. That has to come from within.
Yeah, that's again so true. I knew that both of you would just have, all the goods. And alhamdulillah for you guys coming on. I super appreciate you coming. And I know you guys were able to see the comments. And so it seems like a lot of value has been pulled from the conversation already. So thank you for coming on, for talking with us and being so, I guess, transparent. A lot of times we get these nice sounding things, but I already knew that wasn't going to happen with you ladies. So I very much appreciate that. And so, yeah, I'm sorry. I was not going to show any more comments, but yeah, Sakina, that disgustingly in love with yourself, it's something that I think is innate in many people, and it kind of gets worked out of you. And so, yeah, that's a great takeaway from what you were saying. But again, thank you guys for coming on. I appreciate it. I'm sure everybody watching appreciates it. And that's all we have for the evening. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
All right, assalamu alaikum. And I appreciate you guys.